Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. This week we're going to be exploring a cityscape of Toronto. Toronto has quite a lot of architecture and it's quite beautiful. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. I won't give the drawing template, but I'll give the reference for this painting so you guys can download from my site. The reason being I'm not giving the drawing because I want you guys to go and practice, and it's okay to get your own reference as well. And this is quite a bit of challenging perspective, and sometimes as an artist I try to push myself. I think every artist it should be their journey to challenge themselves on not doing the same thing again and again. So being said that, you can see the reference, and it's kind of like quite zoomed out in a really it has a really big vantage point, but I make sure that I arranged in a such a way that it's good for composition. As a painter, if you're copying as it is, you can just take a picture. So as an artist, you have to transpose everything, push your shapes here and there to create an impactful composition. So that's the first thing. So before, when I started painting, I just paint and just from photos, but in recent years of painting I realized that as a painter we have to come up with a story and we have to create an impactful composition. So you could see I started with my light wash first. So I started with the sky and I started with the Cobalt Blue wash. At the bottom I warmed up a little bit using cadmium orange. You can also use a little bit of green because you can see in the reference it's kind of a little bit lightish green. So when you do the first wash, you squint your eyes and see what are the values of the light in our buildings. And you could see there's a little bit of a warmish yellow ochre. I put it there. In the building in the front, it is a little bit of a whitish building, but I did add a little bit of amber just to have a little bit of highlights in there. And watercolors tend to go a little opaque, and what I mean by that, the values goes really light when you paint it. The building on the right hand side, you can see, even though it looks a little bit the value of, let's say 7, but once it dries out it goes to 3 or 4. So that's why everybody says watercolor is a master's medium, but I do enjoy painting in watercolors because of the fluidity of it, and it also gives a great texture, and it also really fast to paint as well. So once I'm happy with the first wash, even though my washes are wet, since I started painting the background, so I can start filling in the background buildings. When it comes to background, keep it really simple. It is really tempting to add a lot of details because that's the first thing we're going to paint, but I try to make sure to keep it really simple. And I also add a little bit of shadow. I made up a shadow in the background so it also frames over the foreground building as well. When you do this, don't dab, try to create a fast confident strokes. So I started the building on the details. When I'm adding the details for the windows, it's just one stroke. I don't go back again and try to fix anything because it's in the background. I don't care about it that much. And for adding the shadows, I'm going to add a little bit of a darker tone because since it's early in the morning and there's going to be a lot of contrast going inside the shadow. And like when it comes to shadow, there's a trick I usually use. I try to warm up my shadows using burnt amber, and I put a little bit of red in it. Or else you can use yellow ochre as well. So these are the perspective lines. I'm adding that, and instantly it gives that there's windows there, and you can see just by giving quick confident marks, we already made a building. It looks like a building. So we also creating impression. I create an impressionistic style, and you can also make it realistic by adding more details as well. Being said that, my focal point is the big building which is sitting in the midground. And you can see when I'm adding the details for the windows, I'm keeping it really simple. But I'll add more details on the left hand side of the building, the tall building, because that's a bigger structure in our painting as well. So I'm also adding the details at the bottom of the Tim Hortons, and there's a little bit of red there. So I want to push it just to have a little bit of colors in my painting. Because when you squint your eyes and if you see the reference, everything looks dull and gray. So we can add a little bit of colors so that our painting pops up. So this is a shadow, and this is shadow makes the whole painting come alive. And you can see even in the shadow, I'm trying to make up my shadows a little bit of my own style. As I said in the beginning, as an artist, you have to come up with your own way of painting and designing your painting. And I can't say this enough. Don't copy as it is, and it doesn't look as good as you paint. And this also helps you to grow while designing your painting as well. And if you want to learn about designing or how to arrange shapes, the good book would be Carlson, Guide to Landscape, and I learned a lot from his book. So I would highly recommend beginners, or amateurs, or even advanced painters to go and check it out. And it does quite a lot of information. So now I combine the shadows from the midground to the other ground. So I'm going to combine all the shadows into one single shape. And you can see as soon as we add the shadows, the whole painting come alive. And I also left some white bits here and there, so I'll just make that as cars, street poles, and whatever you name it. So when it comes to the foreground, the right hand side, I don't want to add a lot of details in there, because I don't want to take away the Euro building, as I call it. So the Euro building gets a lot of love, and the rest of the painting gets a little bit of detail than anything else. And you can see as soon as we add the other shadow on the right hand side, you can see it created that contrast between the light and dark. And even though the shadows are a little bit different, I'm also trying to make the shadow in an angle of a 45 degree. This is what I meant designing your painting. You can also design shadows, lighting, and whatever you feel like. But at the end, it have to look pleasing to eyes. So now I'm adding the tertiary details. We kind of blocked in the primary and secondary shapes. You could see the primary would be the big tall building. The secondary shapes would be the lighting and the shadows. And the third one would be adding the details, like the cars, street poles, street cars, and whatever little bits which is sitting on the in our composition. When you do it, I would take my time and look for certain details where you want to lead your viewer's eye to. So my main goal is to focus on the big building, so I'll be adding details close to that building. So now it's a matter of point where bring back and glazing, bringing back some of the highlights back, and giving some texturing details. So now there is an antenna which is sitting at the on the BMO building. It's not visible in the reference. I kind of added this so that it connects the sky as well. So this is another design element. You can also add that as well. And I also noticed that the details in my the foreground building, which is sitting on the left hand side, kind of faded out. So I'm just going to quickly give some details here and there. So now only few things left in our building is adding some eyelets back, and because it's really hard to bring back eyelets or leave eyelets when you started painting. So I use Chinese white out of the tube. You can also use gouache. It's also really opaque as well. So I'm just throwing details wherever I see it's necessary, and it also pop up the whole scene as well. I always paint with tape, and this kind of shows how your paint is going to look like once it's framed. I think the painting came out rather nice, and we capture the essence of what's in our reference. It's a little bit darker there, but it's fine. And now it's your turn. Go and look for references with extreme perspective and something challenging, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this how to paint cityscape video tutorial with me. Before you go, give the thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And please do share with your fellow artists and friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.